Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 3 of Breaking News Bears. I am your host for today, Mario Russo, and how fitting of an occasion for me to wear this beautiful Detroit Tigers jersey. We got the AL Central queued up. I'm joined by Evan Davis and Mateo Ruiz. And why don't we get right into it? Because there's a lot of texture with these teams in regards to youthful things. But when you're looking at the on-field play, it's going to be a little bit tricky. But why not start with the Detroit Tigers? Their offseason grade, I gave them a B minus. And the only thing that I think is pretty suitable for this roster is that you're relevant again. And the signing of Javi Baez really brought some swagger to Motown. I still believe they need to round out a bit of the starting position, the starting pitchers. Maybe they go out and acquire Sonny Gray or Bassett from the other side of the league, but they need a guy who can eat up innings, especially because they're going to be in a lot of situations. I know the Tigers aren't going to be in a position right now to contend, but in a few years, it could possibly be the case. They have a lot of young guys, a lot of young pitchers coming up, but right now in the situation that they're dealt, I think they need a guy to eat up innings. And I'm going to turn it over to you guys. To start with you, Mateo. What grade do you have for the offseason so far? I know the lockout's still underway and they still have a lot of noise to possibly make. So everything can change and everything is subject to change. What do you got as of right now? What's the grade you got and what have you seen from this team?
I have them at around a B, B plus. I mean, they did what they said they would. They went out, they got like a top tier, well, maybe not a top tier pitcher, but they got a really good pitcher that can front that rotation. That was obviously a weak point in the past. And, they added Javi Baez, which, wasn't the shortstop they were initially targeting with Carlos Correa, but by no means is he like something to scoff at, right? They added a great shortstop and they added a really solid starting pitcher. And, with a few more pieces, I think this team has a chance to be competing for that second wildcard spot. I mean, they're not there just yet, but with how far along we are in the offseason, I think a B plus is pretty fair.
Yeah, and I mean, the only reason I think we're going to get into this and tackle this a little bit more as we touch upon the Detroit Tigers, they're going to need a lot of production, and it's going to rely heavily on their youth players. I believe Badu, who had a terrific season, or a terrific start to the season, rather, it was actually pretty historical, remarkable. We're seeing from where he came from to how he got to the MLB. Great story there. You're going to need a production from the guy like him, Torkelson, their newly wedded. I believe it was the first overall pick, first round pick, definitely. I remember watching him a bit down in ASU. So you're going to want to see production from those guys. But Evan, I'll turn it over to you just to focus a bit more on the offseason. What do you give them on a grade scale, and what have you seen so far about this Detroit Tigers team?
I don't know. Like I gave them a C plus just because I'm really not high on Javi Baez. He strikes out way too much, and I do think he is a bit overrated on the offensive end. He doesn't, for as much as he helps you, he hurts you. It just like I said, a strikeout machine. I can recall numerous games with the Mets where he had 3+ strikeouts, and for a guy that you're trying to rely on for, I believe, the next 6 years, I consider it a significant downgrade from a guy like Carlos Correa, who they were targeting. I think Eduardo Rodriguez was a great signing. I think he's a very underrated pitcher that was in the offseason, how it was just so consumed by that middle infield with guys like Simeon and Seager. Eduardo Rodriguez kind of like fell down in terms of name recognition, but I do think he'll be a great addition to this Detroit Tigers team, and especially playing in a ballpark that's so pitcher friendly.
Yeah, and I mean, you're going to need pitchers. I think Eduardo Rodriguez is the absolute start, and it was a great start for the Detroit Tigers this offseason. I'm sure we're going to see a bit more pitchers, maybe not the star-studded names in free agency like Eduardo Rodriguez was, but definitely a guy like I was mentioning before. Someone's going to eat up innings because I don't believe, and I think we're on the same page here, they're not going to contend just yet, which would be a terrific segue into my next one here. Their record, what are they going to finish with? Now, last week we were giving up the exact records around there, give or take. I didn't do exact records. I did more so where they're going to lie in the wins, so I'll let you guys do the math. But for me personally, I got their record at 60 wins around there, and their team ceiling probably around 75 wins. I think I'm being a little even polite with that record. I want to turn over to you guys now. What do you guys put at the record for this Detroit Tigers team? What do you see them, how many wins they're racking up, or if you want to give me an exact one as well, that'll suffice. Evan, I'll start with you.
I don't know. I feel like 60 wins is pretty fair for this team. I do disagree with you on the ceiling, though. I feel like the ceiling is just going to be a little bit less, maybe at around 70. Look, Eduardo Rodriguez is great, but unfortunately, he can't pitch every day. The Tigers probably like that, but their 2 through 5 right now is just not looking that great. It doesn't match up with a lot of other 2 through 5s. I also just don't like when we're talking about, obviously this is around day 60 of the lockout. I just don't know how many guys really want to go to Detroit. Like given the fact that, it's cold throughout the year. So it's hard on pitchers just to like, you need the warm weather in order to really like pitch effectively and pitch well. And I just don't think they'll get what they're hoping for. I think that's also maybe like why a guy like Correa just said, I can't commit to that long. But I do think it's fair to give them maybe like around a 70 as the ceiling. I think 75 could just be, it's the MLB, so they could definitely win games that they're not expected to. But yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, and you bring up a great point as well. Before I turn it over to you about the record, Mateo, I just want to focus on what's the Detroit Tigers' distant future going to look like? Are they going to generate something? And you got to remember, they had a lot of talent in the early 2010s, I believe. Max Scherzer was there,
yeah.
Justin Verlander in, I wouldn't say their prime, but pretty darn close to their prime, probably the early stages of that at best.
They've all won Cy Youngs
and
now.
they've all turned out
Porcello
to something
as well.
Yeah, Porcello. They all
I do
won.
remember
Robbie
Porcello.
Ray.
Robbie Ray was down in Detroit as well.
He
I did
was.
not know that.
He was,
Man,
yeah.
that team,
he
looking
was the
back at
last-
it now in
He's
2022.
the last Tiger that needed to win the Cy Young. All 5 of their starters have now won a Cy Young.
Yeah, and it's a terrific brand to have. I'm not sure, and I'm not a huge Tigers fan. I know I wear the jersey, but it's more of a style choice. But I'm not a huge Tigers
You
fan.
look
I don't follow them
phenomenal.
close. Oh, thank you. I usually look phenomenal in every jersey. I'll take that. But no, I don't know too much about the insides and the personnel that the Tigers work with, their pitching staff, whether it changed. And I would assume it has gone numerous changes since that huge surplus of great pitching that they had in the early 2010s. But Mateo, I'll turn this one over to you. I'll make it brief. Where do you see this team lying in the near future? Are guys going to want to come here like Javi Baez did? It's Javi Baez, and I know he's a big swagger name, and Evan, I absolutely agree. He isn't maybe the hitter that you want at shortstop just because of the downfall that he makes with his strikeout rate. But is Javi Baez going to be the start of a revolution of players coming because of the youthfulness, or do you need to see a little bit more from this Tigers team?
I mean, I think you guys might be sleeping on Detroit a little bit, to be honest. What you guys said, around 60 wins, 70 wins. I think if you look at it last year, they finished with 77, and they definitely haven't gotten worse, right? So I have them finishing at around 500 this year with the potential to maybe even get to like that 85 win mark if everything goes their way. But yeah, a guy like Javi Baez is a guy that a lot of people want to play with. We saw it with Francisco Lindor. He's a guy that, he's very personable, and he's a very he's a showman. He's a showman. A lot of guys are going to want to be around that energy, are going to want to be around that attention. And especially, in the same vein as the way, everybody wants everything to do with the Blue Jays now because they're young, because they're exciting. I think that's what Detroit is hoping to build, a cast of really young, exciting players filled with this really marketable star in Javi Baez. And, I think that serves as a huge draw, not only for fans, but also for players to come to this team, especially if they can break that 80 win mark this season and actually prove that, they have a competitive future in the next few years.
And they can take a huge step forward if they get the production again from those young players. And you mentioned the starting rotation and those young guys as well. Casey Mize, he's an interesting storyline to follow as well. He was a high draft pick for the Tigers. He's an absolute flamethrower on the mound. He just got so much velocity. I can see him doing great things. And maybe even one day, and I know I'm sort of putting the cart before the horse here, but maybe one day joining that squad of the Max Scherzers and the Robbie Rays and all those guys, because the Detroit Tigers do still have, and I'm very confident that they will develop Casey Mize just as great. We're going to go here to team MVPs. I don't know how far you want to go with these. Personally, for me, I got Javi Baez just because he is the showman. I think he's going to steal all the light down in Detroit. But there's so many other great young players that maybe could take a dent. And again, that relies on what production we're going to see, because that's the main storyline that we'll be following in this Detroit Tigers season. Mattel, I'll go with you, and then I'll stick to Evan after. Who do you see being the team MVP? Who's going to be shining for the Detroit Tigers?
I've got what might seem like a little bit of a long shot. I feel like Javi Baez was kind of a bit of a, I didn't want to have Javi Baez across the board. So I had to reach out of the box a little bit. But, if you look at the park adjusted stats, because Javi Baez, he's never played in a field quite like Comerica, right? So the numbers that we can expect from Javi Baez, we know we're going to get a little bit of a downturn. If you look at the park adjusted stats between these two players last year, you've got Javi Baez and you've got a really comparable player in Heimer Candelario. And I know that's a bit of a weird name. Like, not a lot of people think of Heimer Candelario when they think of MVP of a team. But here's a guy who, if you look at OPS plus, was just a little bit better than Javi Baez this year. And he played in a significantly worse park. And he did that all with hitting half as many home runs. Heimer Candelario, another guy who led the league in doubles. I don't know if you guys know the last player to do that at Comerica, who that was.
I do want to
say it was Nick Castellanos.
It was Nick Castellanos who also did it in his age 27 season with Heimer Candelario is in his age 27 season. That just happened to be the year before he went to the NL Central and absolutely broke out. So if I had to hedge my bets on somebody that wasn't Javi Baez, I'd probably be picking Heimer Candelario to be this team's MVP. I think you're going to see a lot of an offensive spark from him this year.
And it's that is one that you have to dig a little bit deep in the bag, but it's definitely a fair statement. I mean, he's done so great last season. Obviously, you mentioned all the doubles that he's been smashing. And again, fans, if you do not know, Commercial Park is not hitter friendly. And I don't know if I'm mistaken, but is the gaps pretty large compared to a lot of ballparks? Or
the gaps are pretty large. So what you happen is a lot of home runs turn into a lot of doubles, right?
Like in that center field, center field wall, that one like extends so far out.
Is it still 420 to center?
I know it's a long way out.
Is that real? I think it's still 420 to center. Like, I don't know, ridiculous.
Which is crazy because if you look at, like, I just know based on knowledge, like Dodger Stadium, I think center field's like 405.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like if they're hitting a double in the gap, that should be a no doubter in most
exactly.
parks.
Which is why I like to look at, when I look at Tigers players, I like to look at doubles over homers for power numbers. I think, you look at a comparison of the two of them, and a guy like Heimer Candelario, 42 doubles, right? This guy's got some serious pop. And in comparison to his teammates, I think he's probably going to be the leader of this offense.
Absolutely. And Evan, I'll turn it over to you. I know Javi Baez is the blue chip answer to go with, the swagger one, but maybe we could dig a little bit more in the bag and see which other guys we can get. I know Candelario is off the board, so I don't know where else you go, but you let me hear it.
I don't know. Like I honestly, like, not even that it is Javi Baez. I just don't like, I'm not a huge fan of him. I don't know. Like, I know, like, obviously Lindor wanted to play. I think that was just more of like a friendly, like, friend connection thing. Cause I guarantee you once Javi started swinging or wasn't swinging, I think it was kind of like, like what did we do here? That's why I just thought like the Lindor was like, they've just been buddies, Dominican Republic, playing throughout, like up until they got to the MLB. I'm going to go with the California kid, Robbie Grossman. I think he could definitely, he's 32 now. He'll be 33 when the season starts. So he's definitely entering the latter part of his prime, but I hit 26 home runs last year. I'm just looking at like outfield production, which is what a lot of teams really, or not a lot of teams, but a lot of the bottom teams struggle with, is trying to get production from the guys in the outfield. And I just think Robbie Grossman has the potential to hit 30 home runs this year. To comment about the Tigers just in general, though, last year was just a weird year with the COVID, that like guys are out of the lineups are a little discombobulated. This might sound like crazy. I just don't know how much more Javi Baez helps you offensively. Defensively, I think he's great. I think he could definitely help turn more double plays. But other than that, like I maybe they can sniff 500. I don't see them going over 500.
And it's going to be probably the biggest hurdle that they're going to have to go and leap over, the 500 mark, at least for a rebuilding team or one that's sort of trying to push and come out of that rebuilding stage. The 500 mark is the big one that you want to hit. And I think they are capable of doing that. It's just, again, and I'm going to bring it up in this next point, getting the production from those young guys. And a guy like Grossman, he's a terrific not only really but he's a terrific piece to have in the outfield. And this is something that the Detroit Tigers have been priding themselves off of as of recent. They have a lot of key outfielders, a lot of young guys as well that they can roll with. And I'm going to turn over to the team Cy Young as well before we get into the other sort of bits of this Detroit Tigers team. Who do you guys have for the team Cy Young? Because I have Casey Mize or Eduardo Rodrigo. Again, I'm really high on what Casey Mize can bring to the table. He's got a lot, really wide pitch arsenal that he can use, and I know he's going to be electric down the road and down his road in his career. And Eduardo Rodriguez, these Spanish names are killing me, but no, Eduardo Rodriguez, I think he's just probably the best with the best resume thus far in that Detroit Tigers roster for the pitching, starting pitching role. So he could probably be a guy that fights for it, and it wouldn't be too much of a long shot if he were to win the team Cy Young. But let me hear your guys' thoughts. Who do you guys have? Mateo, I'll go with you.
Yeah, again, I went a little bit out of the box here. I know, we stopped giving Cy Youngs to relief pitchers in about the 80s, but I like a guy like Michael Fulmer, who I know we've had a lot of discussions about before, and to see him, the strides he's made from last year to this year in the move to the bullpen, I think he's going to be an exceptional pitcher this year. I was on his Baseball Savant page the other day, and I don't know if you guys know how Baseball Savant works, but you've got, the different circles to show you what percentile of certain statistics these pitchers are in. And Michael Fulmer is a guy who was in like the bottom 10 percentile in everything, like walks and hits and expected on base and average and all that stuff, right? And you look at him this year, and in almost everything, he's in the top 60 to 80 percentile. He's just a guy that's taken incredible strides to Detroit's finally getting the production that they expected out of him. And I think out of the pen, he's got a chance to be a shutdown closer for the Tigers this year, which is exactly what they're going to need if they want to win some competitive games.
And absolutely, it's going to be some tough sledding to close out games against those other rivals that we're about to touch upon in the American League Central. And Fulmer, he has been, and I think he will continue to be a dominant force of the bullpen. And I'm glad that they bring the Cy Young out of the bullpen. I wish to see that a little bit more. And it makes sense. A lot of these teams do have a bit of high leverage bullpen guys, so maybe we could even see it down the road. Evan, I'll turn it over to you. Who do you got taking home the team Cy Young?
Yeah, I mean, Michael Fulmer is definitely an interesting name. I was going with Casey Mize just because I do think he is a little underrated, maybe just a little under the radar. Although he did have a 3.71 ERA, which definitely isn't great, but given the Tigers just defensively, I mean, that's pretty solid for just what he has to work with. But the one thing that really caught my eye is the whip, which is 1.14, and that's pretty high up given just the fact of how young he is. And if that's he's 24 years old, so the only thing he can do is improve. And you look at a 1.14, obviously guys like Max Scherzer, Walker Buehler, Corbin Burns are all kind of in the 0.9, so it's kind of a stretch. But if he could slowly progress to that, I mean, he could definitely be a nice 1-2 punch with Eduardo Rodriguez. I just really love the potential. I did see him pitch a little bit last year. It's kind of hard just being on the West Coast trying to find Tiger games. Just they're at weird times during the day, but I just think he has some great potential, and I think learning from a guy like Eduardo Rodriguez can just help him exponentially just grow as a player.
Yeah, and he's got a mentor in Eduardo Rodriguez, which is definitely a huge positive. We know how much players work well with a younger guy compared to an older guy, and then side by side. You're going to want to maybe try to develop if you're the Detroit Tigers, at least showing for the long run that these two guys you can roll with in the near future. But why don't we stick around with the young talent on the Detroit Tigers and go to the make or break year? For me, I got anyone young, and I know I've been talking about it so much with the Detroit Tigers. You need, and this is an absolute must. And I've been reading a lot of articles as I've been doing research on this team more and more. Everyone's talking about how these guys have to produce. The guys like Baddoo, the guys like Torkelson. I believe he's going to be playing this season. All their young pieces have to come together and show that they're ready to rock. They're ready to make not playoff push, because I think again you can kick that can far down the road, but maybe try to put something of a season where you're trying to make a playoff push. Put up some numbers. That's what I got. You guys could throw some names, but I got anyone young. Evan, I'll go to you if you want to start.
Is Torkelson a first baseman?
Torkelson is a first baseman.
He is a first baseman.
Yeah. Okay, I'm getting confused.
He's taking over. He's filling in some big shoes.
Yeah.
Cabrera, if we don't know, is retired.
Yeah.
So
I was getting confused with Torkelson and Adley Rutsch, like the catcher for the Orioles, the number one pick.
Oh, okay.
I keep getting them mixed up in my head. So I was like, which one's the catcher? Okay, yeah. Anyway, I actually do agree with you, Mario, that it is anyone young, but I have it for different reasons as you.
Okay.
I think in order for the Tigers to really become competitive in what I think is the second weakest division, I think first is the NL West, and then I think this is the second weakest division. I think they need the guys to get young in order to make trade assets out of this, because I think it's going to be very hard it seems like it's very hard for the Tigers to get free agents to come to Detroit. I think the only way they can really build this team is via the draft and trade. So I do think they need these younger guys to almost just produce, because then what we've seen with all these teams do is that they trade future for now. Like there's so many teams that do that. And I think it's a wide open division still. It depends what happens with, what's his name? Giolito. Wait, no. Sorry, who's the free agent in Chicago? The pitcher,
Rodon.
Rodon.
Rodon. Yeah. Whatever happens with Rodon, if he leaves, that's a hole that Chicago will need to fill. I just think that Detroit could get that potential. That's why I think the young guys, if they could step up and trade, and they have the cap space, so finding someone with a large contract or finding someone with a team-friendly contract isn't the issue here.
And the Tigers, they're not a team, at least I don't think, one like the Pittsburgh Pirates situation they find themselves in, where ownership's not going to feed them a lot of money. They have the ability to spend as much as they want. I know Detroit's aching for a decent sports team to come up, and they have done it in the past. So I think that one's off the table. They can definitely go out and make some big splashes like they did with Javi Baez. So that's a continuing trend. It's up to if they want to trade and increase the value. It's sort of like a little bit of a gamble. You increase the value of your young guys, trade them off. And in a wide open AL Central, which is why I think it feeds into your point, Evan, they can definitely make a run if they trade the right pieces. I don't think that they need to trade nor want to trade these young pieces. I don't think they're trying to be. No, I absolutely understand what you're saying. And it absolutely could work if they went there.
Yeah, but I get that. But sorry, Mateo, but like you got to start somewhere.
Okay.
I'll leave it at that. Like you got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And when you're the Tigers, like, yes, it's nice having all these young guys, but for what? That's the question that the Tigers are gonna have to ask. And they obviously are willing to spend money. They just gave 175 million over 6 years to Javi Baez. So them spending isn't the issue here. I think the issue is these guys develop, and then by mid-season or towards the deadline, then you make a move. A move doesn't have to be made immediately for them to make a playoff push, but long term, you could see what you could get for like what about a guy like Trevor Story, or I'm sorry, not Trevor Story, crap, someone else. I just realized because they have bias, but that's what I mean is like, what's the point of having them if you're not going to benefit really?
Yeah, man, absolutely. And again, if you hear anything in the background, I apologize. A bit of an argument in my house, so don't you worry. Yeah, it's a little tense, but we'll stick to baseball right here. And again, it's all about the avenue the Detroit Tigers want to go down. And Mateo, I'll turn it over to you. What avenue do you think they'll take? And even if you want to throw in the make or break year, that would be terrific as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Tigers are obviously more than one piece away. I don't think they're at the point right now where they can mortgage their future for like that one player, because I think it's going to take a little bit more than that to push them over the edge. One guy that they definitely won't be giving up on is what's his face? I forget his name now. Spencer Torkelson. We've only been talking about him for the last hour.
Now I got you missed.
Yeah, I know, right? He's a guy that you're not going to see open the season with the Tigers. They're obviously going to do the service time manipulation. He's probably going to come up in April because that's how baseball works, and that's a completely separate conversation. But he's going to come up in April, and the Tigers are expecting a lot out of him. He was in college. He broke the Sun Devils home run record, I believe, that Barry Bonds used to hold. So big shoes to fill at first base, but also he's left a legacy too that you can't deny. Spencer Torkelson's a guy who's going to come in. You're expecting him to set the league on fire. What you're going to get from him, who knows? But yeah, you're expecting him to come in. You're expecting him to be a really great, bat for this team. And, if I can't have Heimer Candelario as a breakout and an MVP, then I guess I'll take Spencer Torkelson here. But yeah, as far as what the Tigers should do, you got to buy without breaking the bank, right? You got to add pieces here and there without mortgaging your future on one player, because you're not at that stage in your rebuild yet where that makes any sense.
No, and I absolutely agree. And Evan, obviously, you bring up the great point, and a lot of teams do go down that avenue. I just believe the Detroit Tigers, they put in so much time in developing this youthful system. Again, they had, when they were in their great years and making playoffs with all those pitchers that we mentioned earlier, they didn't have too much in the prospect pool. Now they had to rebuild that. They had to go through a couple of years of what we've been seeing lately of the Tigers and rebuild all those young guys. And now they're here. And again, like Mateo said, you could bring in little pieces here and there. I don't think you got to rinse out the entire, not the entire, but big pieces of your future for some players. And it's a great debate to have, not one that I want to have on this show, because we have a lot of other teams to get to. I didn't want to spend this much time on the Detroit Tigers, but let's move on. And just quickly, positioning, are they going to be buyers, sellers, or are they going to stay? Just a quick one. Stay, buy, sell.
I think we established it.
I think so as
well. I do agree with Mateo.
Yeah.
It's like buyers, but with reason. I just want to say, like, it seems like based on how high prospects might be, you could trade two prospects for two major league talent players. We've seen that numerous occasions where two solid elite prospects can get you a lot of MLB talent in return.
That's for sure. Yeah. I just don't know if that's enough right now to get you over the White Sox this year.
No, for sure.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
but it's all about starting somewhere. It's all about starting somewhere.
Sure.
And time is of the essence with them.
Yeah. No doubt.
Anyways, we'll move it over to the Cleveland Guardians. I have the Detroit Tigers jersey, but I also want to maybe buy, and a lot of people can be simulating with me, the Cleveland Guardians. They are the new, not I would say new team. They've been along for quite a while. Not a lot of playoff success. That's the big one with this team. But no, we'll talk about the Cleveland Guardians just now. Logo change. I'll start there. Logo change and jersey change. I don't know if they released their jerseys, but I know the logos come out and the name.
I think they're for sale. Yeah, I think you can buy them. You can buy them at the stadium, I think, at least. Yeah.
Cool.
But
yeah, definitely something to look into. But a quick one. Are you guys a fan of the whole new Guardians thing? Personally, for me, I don't really see the Guardians aspect in Cleveland, but maybe I'm just one of those other guys. What do you guys think of the name change, first of all?
Well, the Guardians, I think, was in respect to like they have this bridge in Cleveland or whatever, and it's like the Guardian Bridge or something. Okay. So I mean, it makes sense. I mean, the whole fiasco with the whole roller derby team was kind of funny with the fact that they almost weren't able to use the name. But I think it's a change that's long overdue, honestly, and I'm happy that they've changed it. Whether Guardians was the right name to change it to or not is a completely separate discussion. But the logo looks sick, and I kind of want one of the hats. So
yeah, I actually want one of those hats. They look kind of cool. But Yeah, it's definitely better than what the Washington Redskins did with just naming it the football team right away and then trying to figure something out. Like at least Cleveland was respectful of what the issue was and they figured
Yeah.
something that was now appropriate. And I give them the credit because it's definitely hard just to like think of a name change that also brands well with what you want your city to represent. And yeah, I'm a fan of it. I'm happy that something was figured out as soon as possible. And I like how I loved how they responded to like, okay, like we understand, like let us play out the season and then
Exactly, yeah.
like, and then give us the time because no disrespect to anyone, but it's like, that's not their concern when they're trying to like battle for playoffs. Like you got to kind of be in that mindset. And then when the off season comes, then you could start thinking about it.
Absolutely. And it was a change that obviously had to be done. We don't
Yep.
have to go down that road. And I actually do remember this was dating back. And I really do remember reading a bunch of articles back in before high school, actually grade 8, where the news started rumbling that Cleveland wants to change the Chief Wahoo logo and all that kind of stuff. Starting of the name change and leading up to it. So it just kind of goes to show how something like this is a pretty well-planned thing. And it's a really journey to get from the start of when you realize there has to be a change and then all the way to the end point, which is pretty interesting to see from a sports standpoint. But we're going to focus on this Cleveland Guardians team. And now we know the name change is done. The only thing that I have seen this offseason is that the name change has happened. I haven't seen too much out of Cleveland bringing in guys, ripping apart some players. I have to grade them a C, or I think I even have here. Could be a C minus or just a slash to my thing. I don't know if it's a C minus or I just slashed to the other thing of what I wanted to say, but in that range, how critical I was, who cares? I want to hear your guys' thought because I was looking at the transactions list and who they brought in, who they sent out. I just haven't seen anything improved in any positions. Maybe you guys are going to pull one out of the bag like you always do, Mateo, and maybe find something that maybe that can throw my whole thing off. But what did you grade them this offseason? I'll start with you. What do you see the Cleveland Guardians?
For an off season, I mean, they better hope those jerseys give them superpowers because they haven't done anything. I mean, they've got some young pieces on this team that have a shot to do something, but as far as any additions they've made or any trades that have happened, we really haven't seen much from them. I have them at a C minus. You know, you've got the pieces that you have. I don't think you're going to go out, you're going to spend on any other free agents because it doesn't really make sense to. And I think it's about time to accept the fact that, you know, you're going to have to start a rebuild somewhere or another.
Yeah, and they were a dominant team a couple of years ago.
Oh, yeah.
They've had their run at the mill a couple of times, most notably that World Series push, and then they go and lose to the Cubs. So what a terrific series that was, eh? You have the Cubs who have such a long curse. I believe it was over 100 years, longest curse in sports. 108.
Yeah,
longest curse in sports. And then you got Cleveland, who I am very
second longest World Series drought.
Yep.
Yeah,
and I saw them make an appearance on Monday Night Football, Rams Cards, where they even pointed out our back there, the Toronto Maple Leafs for the longest sporting drought. So that was a fun one to see on Monday Night Football a couple of weeks ago. But no, they're going to want to look for some success. Evan, do you see anything in this offseason that's happened or maybe what lack thereof happened that is going to point any fingers towards any recent success from this team?
Well, yeah, I mean, like we got to remember the offseason has been very short and the only free agents that really signed were guys that like we knew were going to sign and that we expected to sign. The Cleveland Guardians are interesting to me because they have so much potential. I feel like, you know, Shane Bieber is great. Tristan McKenzie, that second half of the season was incredible. Like he was really dominant. Granted, like the teams that we're playing against weren't that great, but it's the MLB, so it's the talent level is still exceptional. They're interesting to me because obviously there's the rumblings about Jose Ramirez possibly heading up here to Toronto. He's got one more year left on his deal, so he has this year, and then he has next year. Then he's a UFA. If I'm Cleveland, I'm looking to trade him and get assets for him because the one thing you don't want him to do is walk away and you get nothing in return. Because we were talking about like the MLB predictions and Mateo was saying like I think the 3 prospects I brought up, the top 3 in the Blue Jays system in terms of positioning were the only guys you trade for Ramirez. And if you're Cleveland, you're looking at a rebuild. The 2 people I would really consider trading are Shane Bieber and Jose Ramirez because I don't think they present any value to you right now. As great as they are, you don't really need them. And I think what's more valuable is what the assets you can get in return are. So I think it will definitely be interesting to see where a guy like Shane Bieber even ends up. Obviously, won All-Star Game MVP when the All-Star Game was in Cleveland, and I just think that's someone that you could definitely get off the books. I don't think he has that hefty of a contract. I'm trying to quickly look it up. Oh yeah, he's got a very fair contract.
Yep.
But I just think those are guys that you could say like let's figure something out here for you two, because it's not working out.
And the one thing that this offseason, the reason why I grade them so poorly that they haven't pointed out is which direction your team wants to trend towards. What do you want to do? Do you want to scrap things off and start off clean? And again, you can get so much capital if you pick the right trading partner from Ramirez. He's always up there for the MVP.
Well,
he's a
even
terrific
Bieber.
offensive talent, and Bieber as well. He was, I believe, he's a former, if I'm not mistaken, it could be, he's a former Cy Young. Am I wrong on that? Or was
in
he
the shortened
fine?
season? In the shortened season, he won it. Yeah.
Yes, and I remember because I had him on my fantasy team. He was absolutely lights out.
Wait,
But
when did he win the Cy Young?
in that
2020,
shortened COVID season.
Wait, it was Bauer and oh
yeah.
The 60-game season, he won the
Yeah.
Cy Young.
And he was terrific too.
Yeah, he was
But
terrific.
I think the offseason, and I know it's very short-lived, and there's obviously going to be a bigger offseason because of this lockout, but I want them to really pick a direction. And I'm wondering if this record that I'm about to throw out there is going to maybe predict anything that we're going to see, which direction from this team. Personally, I got them around 60 wins, that ceiling not so far up there with 70. And I know I'm not that great with predicting records. That's why I didn't really go for the exact one. But what do you guys got pretty quickly? And what do you make of the direction that this team is going towards? What direction do you think they should be going towards? Because they got the assets they can chip off, but it's a matter of doing so and executing. I'll start with you, Mateo.
Yeah, I have them somewhere at around like 73, 74 wins. I think they'll do a little better than 60 just because it's kind of, you have to really try to lose 60 games in baseball. But I have them somewhere around low 70s, maybe high 60s. I don't think they're going to be that competitive this year. And I think if they're smart, their record will only get worse because they'll start to trade some of their assets. I think you've got a lot of great young pieces in that rotation that you can build around. You've got a Cal Quantrill. You've got, guys like we were talking about before. But I think a guy like Jose Ramirez just needs to go. Like there's no space in the offense, and you can get too much value for him. And I think you start building around this rotation, and you hope that through the draft and through trade, you can add, offensive pieces in the years to come. But this is not your year to compete. This is your year to sell off assets and your year to try to build for the future. So yeah, low 70s, maybe high 60s, with a ceiling of 76 wins probably.
Mm-hmm. And Evan, are you in the same boat? Do you see them trying to do something this offseason in respect to chipping off pieces?
Yeah, for sure. And I their team is it's really weird because they obviously they have guys that can compete, but it's just fortunately and unfortunately, baseball's a team sport. So it can't just be one or two guys that are doing it all for you. And I just want to say, in regards to Shane Bieber, I'd be curious to see if the Guardians try to send him to the National League and not have to worry about playing against him in the American League. You see a lot of teams do that. I remember even with the Rockies, there were talks that Arenado was going to become a Dodger and the Dodgers were going to offer a huge haul, but the Rockies said, we don't want to face against you. So they sent him to a completely different division. I have their ceiling, I'd say at around 75 wins. I'd say their floor is about 70. I think my prediction will be that they end the year meet me in the middle at 73.
Mm-hmm. And obviously a fair statement. And I think we're just going to have to see this offseason. Obviously, it's still underway. We're going to see what they're trying to do. And I think it's the best if they start chipping off the guys that have been doing so well for them in recent years. And when the years that they were driving for playoff spots and going deep in playoff runs. And what a shame for Cleveland fans, man. They have faced a lot of tough years, a lot of just so much heartbreak in their organization in respect to financial things as well. They're not the greatest financially fit team, and they can never get it done. And it's just sad to see a bunch of these guys who they still have like you mentioned, have a couple of decent players, and they just have to leave because there's not enough. It's a team sport at the end of the day. So definitely add on.
Sorry, go. I wanted to let you finish first before.
No, go on. It's
okay for sure. I was just saying, guys, imagine if Shane Bieber went to the Braves. I mean, they got so many pitching prospects who the Braves could trade. I know, Charlie Morton just signed a deal there. I think he gets now 15 for the next 2 years, something around that. But I mean, I'm just looking at them. They're going to lose so many guys in free agency because the outfield was just loaded. What if they bring in a guy like Shane Bieber to just absolutely compete with the Brewers, Dodgers, Yankees? I mean, they just won a World Series. They might lose Freddie Freeman. Who knows? They could just build around star pitching.
I don't even know if you have to get rid of Bieber. He's only 26, right? And
But
you've got a ton of really quality arms. You've got Plesac was the name I forgot earlier, but you've got a ton of quality arms in that rotation and that pen as well that are going to be really great for
yeah,
years to come. I think Bieber is more of a piece that you can build around, whereas Ramirez is a piece that you have to offload now because you got to get maximum value for him. I think
yeah,
Bieber's still at
I
that
get it.
age.
I
Yeah.
get it. But I just think like given that he is 26,
You'll
and
get a great return for him.
yeah,
Yeah.
the reason why I threw the idea out is because yes, he's 26. And like, let's be honest, do you see Cleveland being ultra competitive? Like in a 5-year plan, do you see Cleveland making the playoffs 3 out of those 5 years?
For a team that has their pitching pretty much
I
sorted
do
out,
think they're
like
well off compared to
it's
these
I
other
think it's more
teams.
likely than you're willing to give them credit for. They have their
Well, I'm just
pitching
looking
pretty
at
much
like
sorted out.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the fact that the only way that they'll really make the playoffs is if they get a wild card.
Yeah.
And because obviously the White Sox are still going to get 90 wins. And then if you're looking, I don't think they're better than the Yankees, who might have to also be in that wild card. The Blue Jays might be in the wild card. The Red Sox, they could. I would give the edge a little bit to the Red Sox there. I'm looking just at the teams there. I just don't see them making it 3 out of the next 5 years. That's why I was saying
It's fair. It's fair.
Get rid of Bieber.
It would definitely accelerate the rebuild. Yeah. But I just don't know
just
if
because
I just don't know if the people in Cleveland are willing to give up on a young pitching
No,
staff with this much talent.
for sure.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'll sum it up real quick. I'm just saying, if you're looking at a 5-year plan and you don't see yourself making the playoffs 3 out of those 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
I think then it's like, guys, like we could get. I mean, imagine the load you could get for Bieber as well. I mean, you could have a plethora of top 100 prospects on your roster, and then in that 7th year, like in 7 years from now, you could overtake the White Sox, or even 6 years from now, 5 years from now, you could overtake the White Sox with what you have. I'm just saying I wouldn't wait until Bieber gets older and then the value decreases just given age.
Sure. That's fair.
And this is the huge debate that I think a lot of Cleveland fans are having as well. It's the debate between rebuild or retool. It's you got to kind of pick and this is what the offseason is sort of going to trend towards, which side of the tracks you're going to lie on. I do personally agree with you as well, Mateo. I think they need a bit of retooling. And as well, I understand completely what you're saying. You're going to get a huge amount of value, Evan, if you're going to deal Bieber. But I think he's still something who is more than capable of producing, more than capable of putting. Thought. Oh, absolutely. And food for thought is never a bad idea, especially on a podcast nonetheless. But no, they can definitely retool around Shane Bieber, and I think they're a lot well off. And we're going to touch upon these other teams as well. They're trying to come up the ranks. They're a lot better off because they have that big one that a lot of teams fail to, or take a while rather to get towards. They have the starting pitching, and that bullpen is pretty lethal as well. And lights out, and they could shut you down on any given night. So Cleveland, it's all about this offseason. Finding a direction to go towards is the sum up of what we're trying to say. And we're going to go quickly through these players. I like to make it a little quick because I want to get to these other teams as well. Team MVP, Team Cy Young, and the make or break. We'll get all three done in one shot, and then we'll move on. Mateo, give me those three, and I'd love to hear them right now.
MVP, no surprise, Jose Ramirez. Yep. Your Cy Young, I went with another young reliever. I went with Emmanuel Class. I mean, his cutter is one of the best pitches in baseball. He's got a slider and a fastball. Does it all with those two pitches. And, you know, he's 16 walks in 70 innings. That was the big problem for him before, was the walks. We saw last year he ironed that out, and he had a ridiculous ERA. So he's going to be the anchor of that Cleveland bullpen, and will probably end up being their, you know, most valuable pitcher, even though, you know, you don't traditionally think of a Cy Young as a reliever.
I love it. I back it.
As far as make or break goes, I've got the Canadian boy from Port Hope, Cal Quantrill. I think we're going to have a great year from him. He had a really rough go of things at San Diego as a rookie, but Cleveland obviously gave him an opportunity to figure it out. And he's surrounded by a bunch of really talented starters in a division that honestly isn't really the strongest. So he's looking for another solid season to really cement himself as a solid piece of this rotation going forward. And yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of success from him. He had a pretty good year last year, and I think one more year from him, or maybe even a little bit of a better year, is going to cement him as, you know, a really solid part of this Cleveland future, and a really solid part of the Guardians going forward. A piece that you can really build around.
And I'm probably going to make a list, Mateo, of how many relievers you check off the Team Cy Young charts as we go through.
I've got a few more coming. I
love to see it. It's terrific. And it just kind of goes to show what the team has as pitching capital all around, their whole pitching staff. Evan, I'll turn it over to you. Give me the three all in one shot here. Team MVP, Team Cy Young, and the make or break.
I feel like unanimously it's going to be Jose
Yes.
Ramirez.
Mhm.
My Cy Young, I said his name earlier. I'm going to go Tristan McKenzie for make or
Mm.
break. I say it as a make year just because although, the ERA, he needs to control that a little. He was giving up way too many runs and not a lot of innings pitched. So, but I mean, the whip is what I look at for a lot of starting pitchers, and 1.18 is real. That's really solid, especially from a 24-year-old pitcher who's just getting his feet in the water in the MLB. If he can lower that ERA down to maybe even 3, I think he could definitely be a dark horse for this Cleveland Guardians team going forward. Am I missing anything? What was the? Am I missing?
Did you give the Cy Young, or was that?
Cy Young. Okay, yeah, I'll go Shane Bieber. I just think,
Yeah.
I mean, number one, I'm not gonna be boring like Mateo and constantly give relievers, but I mean, Shane Bieber is just the only shining bright, like as of right now, heading into the year as a starter.
Watch out for Cal. You're gonna be surprised.
No, I'm
Yeah.
just.
No, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I'm gonna.
I gotta back my pick.
answer.
I gotta back my pick.
I love it.
All
I love
right.
it. Stand your ground,
Yeah.
baby.
Yeah.
And no one's ever against the old-fashioned Cy Young. Let's give it to the guy who's already won one in Shane Bieber. I'll go quickly through mine again. Unanimously, Jose Ramirez. He is the best talent that this Cleveland team has on its roster. Shane Bieber, I got him maybe back in not another Cy Young, but for the team especially, he'll be their flamethrower off the mount. And for the make or break, this one's a pretty interesting one. I got the catching position, a combination of either Hedges or Roberto Perez. I know this is something that Cleveland, and I kind of associate the poor catching development, something that associates with sort of the decline in recent years. It's been something that pitchers have struggled with, aside from Shane Bieber, obviously, but pitchers around them have struggled with pitching to some of these guys. Some of these guys have a lot of defensive lapses, and it's not like they get it done on the offensive side of the ball either. So I really want to see if these guys can maybe turn a page, and I think that'll do work wonders for the offensive side of things, and even defense. It can maybe spark something in this team, maybe make the record a little bit different than we were predicting, but that's just what I got for the make or break. And position, buy, sell, or stay. Quickly, what do you guys got?
I think you got to sell J-Ram and that's it.
Yeah, I'm gonna sell J-Ram and wait a little longer for Bieber just to see what his market could be like. Like I just don't like you at least listen to calls on Shane Bieber. You don't have to accept them, but God, at least listen to like what people might offer.
Yeah, and this one's going to be a little tough one coming from me. And I know that you guys both went sell. I can't go unanimous, and I'll give a bit of my reasoning, and it's nothing major. I do think maybe you just got to maybe buy a bit of a consistent outfielder. I know outfielding has been a bit of a struggle down in Cleveland over the last couple of years, and this is nothing major, making huge splashes and giving up huge capital. Maybe sign a small player here and there. I know the outfield market is quite large in this offseason, so when it resumes, maybe go pick up a couple ones just to even it out a little bit. I know it's something they've struggled with on the offensive side of the ball, and defensively it's been nipping them a little bit, so maybe just improve in there. And obviously in the grand scheme of things, you're definitely going to be a seller because like we mentioned off the top, got to pick a direction you want to go towards, and maybe selling is not the bad idea after all. So we'll move our way here to probably the best team in the sort of weaker set of divisions in the American League Central, the Chicago White Sox. Their offseason grade, I gave them, I don't know, they haven't really done much, but they didn't really have to do much. Their team was dominant. I gave them a B. Losing Rodon, I don't think they're signing him. I've heard a lot of rumblings over Twitter, and like it doesn't seem like they're going to make a push for this guy.
Even on their depth chart, he's not on the depth chart.
So it doesn't look like they're going to make a push for someone like Rodon. And they didn't really have to make a lot of noise. All I really wanted to see was the playoff success last year. We didn't see it. They got knocked hard by the Houston Astros. So I need to see a little bit more. I think it's just all playoff year for the Chicago White Sox. And play all your regular season games, do what you can, do your damage, make some relationships, build some confidence. And once you get to the playoffs, I think that's where it matters. Similar to a situation that we had with these guys back in the background of the Toronto Maple Leafs, where the regular season doesn't mean much because this Chicago White Sox team hasn't made it past the first round in quite a bit. But offseason grades, throw it over to you guys. What do you guys give it to them? What's on a grade scale? Evan, I'll go with you and I'll move it over to Mateo.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, grade wise, look, I think they're fine just given the division that they're in. I think they do need another starting pitcher. If they do lose Rodon, they definitely need to find someone to replace him. I would say ASAP, because I think the one issue that they just have is that starting pitching. I mean, you saw in that series against Houston, they were getting absolutely slapped and peppered with runs, and it just wasn't a great situation for them. you mentioned how they haven't made it past the first round. I just think the only reason they're in the playoffs is because they're the only team above 500. Like they could have finished with 85 wins and still would have comfortably made the playoffs with 5 games ahead of second place. So yeah, I just think they're a little overrated in my opinion.
Yeah, and they're a lock for the playoffs. We're going to go through the next
Yeah.
couple of teams here, but there's nothing as strong as the Chicago White Sox. They're probably the best well-rounded team. And I do agree. I think they can go get maybe and acquire another starting pitcher. I know the
Like a
markets.
Sonny Gray, I
Like
think
us,
would
exactly. I was
definitely.
about to
I
bring
think
it up.
Sonny
Great
Gray
fit,
would
yeah.
definitely.
He'd be a terrific fit down in
Or
Chicago.
Castillo would be an incredible. I mean, I heard like the Reds are at least listening to offers on both.
He's going to
of
go
them.
cheap. He's going to go cheap. They're desperate to move him. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah. So
I think
it
it's an
could be
avenue they can
interesting.
definitely. I think it's an avenue they can definitely explore.
For sure.
Mateo, do you got any specific grades for these guys, and what do you give them? What do you seen from this White Sox team?
I have him at around a C plus. I think losing Rodon is going to be a pretty big blow to you, and I'm honestly a little disappointed too that we haven't really heard any serious considering of a Kimbrel trade. I mean, I know that that's
Oh my God, yeah.
in the works, but I'd definitely like to see it happen because it's clear that he doesn't work in this like middle relief role. So trying to get for him what you can is probably the smartest thing to do. So just based on that, I have them at around a C plus. I mean, they're going to be a great team this year. They're going to win 95 plus games in a weak division, and honestly could probably contend for 100 games if everything goes right for them. So I'm not worried about their success, but I'm worried about their success once they're in the playoffs because they're going to get in the door no matter what. It's just, what are you going to do when you're there?
Absolutely. And you're going to want to have as many starting pitchers that are as elite as possible when you make it to the postseason. And I think that's something that maybe they can address as the offseason resumes. And you kind of killed the two birds with one stone with the record. So I appreciate that. Turn over to you, Evan, with the records. What do you see this team? Nothing. It's pretty going to be unanimous off the board. They're the defending team.
I mean, they're interesting. Honestly, like it just depends on I'm going to base it off the fact that Rodon is gone, and I'm looking at the depth chart. I'm looking at these 5 pitchers. I'm going to say that they'll probably touch 90 wins. I'll say the ceiling right now is 93 if they do acquire a new pitcher. If they acquire a guy like Sonny Gray and Luis Castillo, it's definitely an up. Or Luis Castillo, I mean, it's definitely an upgrade over what their third pitcher definitely in the rotation is. But I just. I'll just leave it at that. I'm not really confident in them. It's just only granted that they're playing against teams that are the rest of the 4 teams are in rebuild mode right now.
Yeah, and you play the cards that you're dealt. Obviously, Chicago, as they always do, will come out of it on top for most cases. The one thing that I really want to see is maybe how they take it to the more contending teams that they're going to have to face around the league this year. And I think that's going to be an interesting storyline to follow, and that'll prove what this team is really made of. What can you expect in the playoffs? And I think a guy that's going to get them there, and I'm going to list my team MVP in here as well, Jose Abreu. I know he's 1-on-1 already. He's a terrific talent on the offensive side of the ball, and I don't give him all over the obvious ones. I'm the host. I kind of have to push out the easy ones and let you guys flush out all the others. But no, Jose Abreu, who's the team MVP. He's a terrific talent, like we've seen extensively in his career. I think he's going to just keep it up. I think that's a natural thing that he could do. But yeah, what do you got for the team MVP? And I know you're really good at scraping the bottom of the barrel and finding some key ones out of the hat that you see coming from it, aside from Jose Abreu, because again, they got a decent roster going too.
Yeah, we didn't really go bottom of the barrel here, but I went Luis Robert. He's a guy who's obviously had a lot of injury struggles, but hopefully this year we'll be able to see a full season from him. Defense and offense, he's got the makings of a real star, and you just want to see him stay on the field and put it all together. And he's going to be a special player. It's just a matter of when, and I'm hoping it's this year. So he's my MVP for the White Sox.
Evan, what about you? Who you got?
I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted between Yasmani Grandal and Tim Anderson. I think the fact that Yasmani Grandal, and I said it last episode too, the fact that your catchers can also bring you power and contact, I think is something huge. And Grandal was really able to get the ball out of the park. And Tim Anderson is an incredible shortstop. He's got the speed, and I think just the excitement that he brings to that team and the energy he brings makes him the team MVP.
Yeah, and it's interesting you mentioned Grandal as well. I'm going to go over to the make or break player for this team. I was not a big fan of Yasmani Grandal. It was just the way he started the season, and it lasted for quite a long time. He was a walk machine, and he always got on base, but it was never really anything spectacular. And then near the end, he caught a bit of fire and was knocking it out of the park. I just want to see a little bit more consistency on the offensive side of things, more over. I know he can get it done, and he's a power bat, and it's terrific from a catcher's position, but I want to see it more over 162 games, or maybe not 162 because he's a catcher, he won't play that much, but you know what I'm trying to say, over an entire season, rather than in the start, you start off pretty shallow, in the middle, you're sort of working it up, and at the end, by the time they're there, you're at your best. Maybe try to even it out a bit. And I think he has to. He was probably, this roster stacked from top to bottom. I think they can get things done at any area there. And I think he would be a make or break player for me. And I'm going to stay on the make or break before I go to the Cy Young. Mateo, who do you got as your make or break player for the Chicago White Sox?
My make or break player for the Chicago White Sox, I know, young reliever, big surprise. It seems to be my trend today, but I like a guy, Garrett Crochet. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the name, but he went 11th. Never heard of her. He went 11th overall. I believe it was the 2020 draft. Or was it the 2021? No, it was the 2020 draft because he played in the shortened season. This man has never played a game of minor league baseball. He came straight to the majors, lefty out of the pen, throws gas, didn't give up a single run in the shortened season in 5 appearances, and backed it up with an amazing season in 2021 out of the pen. I'm looking for another awesome year for him, as he could cement himself as one of the best lefty relievers in baseball if he comes up and puts one of like the same numbers that he was putting up last year. I think he's got the chance to be really special, and you don't see a player come around who's never pitched an inning of minor league baseball and be this dominant in his career. So I'm looking for a guy like Garrett Crochet to be really great this year.
Was this the guy that was throwing like 102 in his first
that's Garrett Crochet.
Oh
that's
my
Garrett
God.
Crochet.
Yo,
I like my young relievers. And I must say it's a nice change to see a Dodgers fan showing some love to Yasmani Grandal too. So.
No, I loved Yasmani Grandal. I just thought, like, just contract wise and who was coming up, there just had no sense in keeping him, traded him to Milwaukee, I think. But my make or break was mine's interesting, and I'm actually going Dallas Keuchel. I just think he was a 1 season wonder in my, obviously based on like the stats, kind of getting tossed around a lot, but I just think as a guy who used to be so highly respected when he was at Houston, I mean, teams feared playing against him, and now they almost love it because of how many runs he gives up. It's just, I think this is kind of like last chance for him. And then if you're the White Sox, you got to think like, this guy can't help us win games. He's kind of our dead, like the Charlie horse that's just kicking us in the pants every time. I think it's a make or break year for him. Just, you got to figure it out.
Absolutely. And we'll make our way to Cy Young as well pretty quickly. Who do you guys got listed as the team Cy Young, the guy who's going to represent them pretty well on the bump and maybe even spill some success down in the playoffs that they're bound to go towards? I'll start with you, Evan, and I'll make it way to Mateo. Who do you guys decide?
I'm going to go with the LA proper, Lucas Giolito, straight out of Harvard Westlake, not too far from where I live. And I mean, that guy is just an absolute cannon of an arm. And just given his age, 27, I mean, he's so dominant. And I mean, it's just Lance Lynn's excellence last season kind of shadowed Lucas Giolito a bit. The record 11-9 isn't great, but I'm looking just overall, I think he definitely has the potential to be their team's ace.
Hey, what about you?
Yeah, I made a boring pick here. I picked an actual starter this time, which is a big shocker.
Lame.
I went with Lance Lynn, boring pick, but he's been the horse of this rotation. He's been solid, for the past however many years he's been in Chicago, and he's going to continue to be this guy that you can give the ball every 5 days, and he's going to go out there and give you a win. So Lance Lynn, the model of consistency, at least in the MLB over the last couple of years. So he's my pick for Cy Young for this team, and they're going to need consistency as the name of the game for him if they want to, make the playoffs and go deep in the playoffs, especially.
And I want to ask this question, and I'm going to leave out the positioning one because I think we touched upon it in the top of our Chicago White Sox talk. I want to ask this question: how similar? And this is just, I sort of thought about this as you guys were mentioning, all the developed starting pitchers, the rotation, the bullpen, all coming together. A terrific pitching staff, nonetheless, for the White Sox. How close is it to replicating what the Milwaukee Brewers did last season, where they had 3 guys to throw at you all at once? They had a terrific bullpen, and Josh Hader leading the way there. And I believe Williams, the youngster there, was dominating as well for the second year in a row. I believe it was second year, unless he won the Rookie of the Year last year. One of the two. He was dominant nonetheless. But how close are you comparing these two pitching staffs? Because they're pretty dominant in their own field.
Well, I think you're leaving out the Dodgers, first of all. What the fuck?
Well...
I think Milwaukee has them both beat, to be honest. I don't know. I don't even think it's a contest.
Wow.
Yeah, Milwaukee's is
Yeah.
great. I just think based on whatever Chicago does continuously in the offseason, making a trade, I think they got to get rid of Kimbrel. I don't think, I mean, I saw his stats like in Chicago, he was fantastic. And I'm sorry, with the Cubs, obviously stayed in Chicago. With the Cubs, he was great. And then it's interesting being that eighth inning pitcher. He was horrible. I mean, he blew so many so many leads and save opportunities for Liam Hendricks. I think you got to get rid of him, and maybe he's your potential trade piece for a guy like Sonny Gray. You know, ever since Chapman in Cincinnati, the Reds really haven't had a lockdown, and I think Kimbrel, if he continues to be the ninth inning pitcher, he can definitely help them.
Yeah, Mateo, what about you? I just want to hear your thought of the Milwaukee and the Chicago debate. I know you said it was a little bit
LA.
not even close, but I want to hear your thoughts on it.
I don't think Milwaukee's a
LA.
contest. I mean that that three-headed monster you have in Milwaukee, I think is some of the best pitching that we've seen in the last, decade in baseball.
Absolutely.
All right. So I mean, you've got really
sense.
talented guys there. They develop guys really great. I'm really high on Woodruff, obviously, even more so than
Overrated.
Woodruff is overrated. Yeah. Yeah. No, they do it the right way in Milwaukee. Like I said last week, when we were talking about Nate Pearson, they like to bring guys up through the pen, give them a little bit of a taste, and then expose them gradually and make them ready for those high pressure situations. And I think Milwaukee's done a fabulous job with those three, and I expect them to continue to do a fabulous job with those high ranking pitching prospects that they have in the works. And this could be a factory of just flamethrowers that Milwaukee's producing right now, and I'm excited to see it. Just don't want them to play against my team.
Yeah, and it very well it is very well fast growing system in Milwaukee, all terrific starting pitching staffs across the board. And it was a little bit of a food for thought. Why not throw it in there?
Yeah.
We'll move our way here for the Kansas City Royals. They're the next team on our list. And I don't know if you guys saw this, but they changed their jerseys, which is pretty cool. They came out with some new looks.
They're really nice.
They are
really
pretty
nice.
I
If
like
only the
gray
team
one.
was just as good.
Yeah, and how about we dissect that right now? I'm going to give you guys my offseason grade. I got them at a C- thus far. They failed to address the big one on the card that they had to scratch off. And I know I'm going to say this about every team. I hate to beat the dead horse, but the offseason still needs to make a little bit of a push. This lockout's just thrown everything in the baseball world on its head. So they've still got to address what they need, the pitching needs, that is. So they don't have too much on the rotation. I was looking at it, and the Cy Young that I had to vote for, and I'm sure you guys were in the same boat as well. It was a tough one to pick because there's not a lot of nice names to look at. And
Brady Singers, they're number one.
Yeah,
Oh,
that's
God.
that's something we'll get into in a little bit. But I want to hear your guys' thoughts on their offseason. Again, failing to bring in anything precedent right now. So what do you guys got? Mattel, I'll start with you, and then I'll work my way to Evan. What do you got for their offseason?
Sure.
Yeah, if you're the Royals, you're getting a C. I mean, you're treading water and you haven't done anything dumb yet. Please sign some pitchers. That's what I'll say.
That was a great way to put it. You're treading water and you haven't done anything dumb.
You haven't done anything dumb.
Love it.
Sign some pitchers. C. That's all I got for the Royals.
Evan, what about you? I'm sure you'd be in the same boat as well.
Yeah, I mean, the Royals are a team that I view similar to the Tigers, where I think the only way you can really build the rest of this roster is via the draft and trade. I just think it's very hard to convince guys that Kansas City is going to be worthwhile playing there. Obviously, like they have Salvador Perez, who's 35. He's obviously not probably going to be there within the next 3-4 years. So like anyone trying to sign long-term really has no motivation to. Yeah, I mean, I like their talent. I'm sorry, I like their roster because I think they have the potential to become something. I'm just looking at it's just right now, which sucks because I think they have the pieces. It's so hard to convince guys to come to Kansas City, especially guys who haven't won a championship yet and want to contend. If you're looking at how young and rich the free agents are, they want to win now. And it's just hard for a team like Kansas City. I think they just got to do it through trades.
And it's the complete opposite we were talking about with Cleveland. They have a pitching rotation that they can build around in Shane Bieber and all those guys in the bullpen.
Yeah,
this team has nothing, but they got a team wise, and I'm really high on their lineup, like you were mentioning, Evan. They have a very good roster, and I think it's a team first roster. 1 through 9, you're getting production from all these guys back to back, and they can roll when they're hot. And I can see this. I don't see them making noise at all because their pitching is an absolute mess, and that has to be figured out first and foremost. But roster wise, this team can definitely come out to play, especially in a
just like
wide open division. Go on.
I'd like to say though, I can make the argument though that it would be easier to go to Cleveland than Kansas City, just given from a player standpoint.
Oh, absolutely.
And just because, yeah, Cleveland does have the pitching, but the problem with Kansas City is that and I think they did get a little unlucky just with injuries. I believe they had Mike Minor. He was traded to the Dodgers, never worked out just because he was constantly injured. And he was a great starting pitcher that just wasn't able to stay healthy. And I just think it's unfortunate. I do like Brady Singer, though. I know I was just laughing at him. He was a high first round pick. Obviously, if you're getting drafted by Kansas City in the first round, it's going to be high, but he does have potential to become a number one. I really like him.
Yeah, and again, I think Singer would be the lone piece that they have that they could potentially build around in that starting rotation. I'm going to talk about it in just a bit, but why don't we get through the records first and foremost? What do you guys see from this team record-wise? I have them, and I'm looking back at it now. I think I'm being really generous with the 75 wins. I don't know how close they're going to hit there because I don't think 71. Yeah, ceiling at 85. I make it a bit of a push on this one.
Oh,
yeah, I'm licking my wounds. It's
85 losses by July, but
yeah, it's not looking too pretty on the record side right now. But I would like to hear your guys' thoughts. You guys are much more, as we've learned through the show. I'm a decent host. I'll give myself that, and I can talk myself through a lot of these MVPs and all this kind of stuff. But when it comes to records, man, that is where the ball drops. You guys
get the baseball.
Yeah,
too.
you guys take it away. What do you guys see from the records for this Kansas City Royals team? I'll start with you, Mateo.
Yeah, I have them finishing at around 72 wins. I think their ceiling is probably somewhere around like 74, 75. I don't see them doing much better than that. They're going to have another mediocre season. And, that's kind of what you expect when you don't have a rotation at all. For a Kansas City team that was really in their years of success, that was really built around, a really strong rotation and an even better bullpen, to not have that anymore is just really like it loses the identity of what Kansas City baseball really is. And so even though you've got some pretty exciting pieces on offense, you've got young position players that, are going to be really good players one day. You can't do anything with that if you can't stop the other team from scoring. So, I'm not expecting anything more than 75 wins from this Royals team.
Yeah, and dig out the blueprints and maybe try to find how you actually got those starting pitchers, because I think and obviously you mentioned it's going to be a mediocre season. Evan, I'm sure you're going to harp the same ones here. It's going to be a mediocre season for the Kansas City Royals nonetheless. But maybe if you could use that season and try to, over the course of the year, bring in pieces now and then, I think that would be terrific. I think just no matter when you do it, just do it. Bring in some arms. They're going to need them desperately. And some arms that can contend. What do you got for the record, Evan?
Yeah, I mean, I'll keep it short and simple. I think their ceiling is about 70 wins. I'd say their floor is probably about 65. It's just, if you don't have anyone who you can identify as a clear number one starting pitcher, you're screwed. And I mean, obviously it's baseball, anything can happen. They'll definitely pull out wins here and there, but I mean, you can't put Brady Singer next to a guy like Jacob deGrom as number ones and say that Brady Singer is even half of what deGrom is right now. And it's not a knock on him. It's just right now, this very moment, it's not looking hot.
Yeah, nothing really is looking hot in Kansas City on the starting pitching side of things. And it's definitely something that can subject to change, right? You can see something, you see it all the time, changes throughout the season, but typically it is the offseason. Maybe they can make a bit of noise now, but it's first and foremost that they need.
Yeah.
I want to tackle this one all in one shot. What do you guys team MVP, team Cy Young, and the make or break? Just because I want to get to the Twins before we close up the show. So, Evan, I'll start with you. What do you got for the three horsemen here? Who's your team MVP, Cy Young, and the make or break?
You know what? I'll put the Cy Young as Brady Singer just because I don't see anybody else. Potentially team MVP, Salvador Perez was their MVP last year. I just want to give a new light. I think someone like Bobby Witt Jr. is definitely going to be.
He's fun, man. He's going to be. Yeah,
I mean, Salvador Perez is great. I just someone else to throw out, Bobby Witt Jr. I think in terms of make or break, it's so hard just because, what, I'll say Andrew Benintendi or Whit Merrifield. Those are guys that have definitely been in the majors for quite some time. I think this is a beautiful opportunity for them to almost build some trade value, become leaders in the clubhouse, and just see how they can do. I definitely could see a team acquiring a guy like Whit Merrifield or Andrew Benintendi as almost a utility piece that you can just play once every few games. So yeah,
Whit Merrifield, I'm going to stay on him a little bit. He's one of my favorite ball players. I just love the way, and it's a dying
Yeah.
breed in the game where you see a guy who has terrific defense, terrific speed. He throws it all the way back to the 30s, 40s when you're seeing all these guys come out and they're just doing everything that imaginable on the baseball field. Huge, you're going to hear it throughout the year. Huge Whit Merrifield fan. I love the way he presents himself and plays the game, especially. He's just a hard worker, gets it done on the field, leaves it all on the field. But I'll turn over to you, Mateo, and I guess Whit Merrifield was crossed off the list here, but who do you guys the team MVP, Cy Young, and the make or break year?
Yeah, name who was mentioned for MVP was Andrew Benintendi. He was my pick as well. I mean, he's a guy who's had to, he struggled a little bit when he immediately got to Kansas City, but he's been able to completely change his swing to suit the ballpark. I mean, yes. Boston, we know you can miss-hit a ball, whether it's Pesky's Pole or it's the Green Monster, you can miss-hit a ball and have it leave the park. You can't do that at Kauffman. It's, aside from Comerica, it's probably one of the least hitter-friendly parks in the league. Right. So Benintendi's a guy who's had to really flatten out his swing. He's had to really focus a little bit more on the singles and the doubles game instead of the home runs that he was hitting in Boston. And he's a guy that, towards the end of the season last year, looked like he kind of had it figured out. And I think we're going to see a lot from him this year. It shows a little bit maturity too in him finally realizing that, I have to adjust to the field. The field's not going to adjust to me. You can't play in Boston for your whole career. So Benintendi's a guy I have winning MVP or the team's MVP. Cy Young, I'd like to say nobody, but I guess I'll say Danny Duffy if they can bring him back. I mean,
I'm sorry. That's the guy that the Dodgers, I believe, traded for was Danny Duffy.
I believe I thought he was still on the Royals.
No, I thought Danny. I think I confused
Did they trade
Mike. I think I confused Mike Minor and Danny Duffy.
Maybe.
Danny Duffy. I'm trying to remember.
I'm not sure. Whatever. I'd like to say nobody for the Cy Young anyway. But as far as a make or break year goes, I like Nicky Lopez. I mean, he's a young shortstop. I mean, he got a lot of chances last year to play.
Duffy.
It was Danny Duffy?
I believe so, yeah, that the Dodgers traded for but didn't do anything. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
They traded for him, but they didn't.
He's still on the roster, right? He's still in Kansas City. Or he's a free agent right now. He's a free agent right now, but he was on Kansas City. Okay,
he was on Kansas City. Dodgers traded for him. He didn't play.
Right.
Continue.
Okay, cool. Right. So Danny Duffy's my pick for Cy Young if they're able to re-sign him. And Nicky Lopez, a young shortstop. The issue with him is the power numbers. I mean, obviously doesn't hit a lot of home runs, but you look at, we were talking about the blueprint for the Royals' success, and you look at their shortstop in their World Series years, and it was Alcides Escobar, a guy who really wasn't hitting the ball out of the park either. And so I think if Nicky Lopez can really, stay consistent with the bat and again, play his game, play the Kauffman game, which is singles, which is, stealing bases, which is all the stuff that he's really good at, and provide that lockdown defense that he did at shortstop, I think he's got the chance to be the shortstop of the future for this Kansas City team. And he can prove that this year.
Absolutely. And you mentioned the identity of the Kansas City Royals. Obviously, the recent years hasn't been pitching because it's been so hard to pick a Cy Young for at least now. But the identity forever has been just never straight power that they're going to slam you with a bunch of runs from the wrong ball, but it's always stemming on hitting it all over the field, 1 through 9. It's always lethal going up and down that order. And I think they're going to stick to that with the lineup they have set now. And just going to my make or break player, I'm going to just stick it around there. Alberto Mondesi, I just want to see a little bit more production from him. He's been really hot and heavy, hot and cold all throughout the year. If he could level out his, not just his swing, but his stat line as well, and make it around maybe the 260, 270, maybe you're even pushing to the 300 mark in batting average. Because I think that's what he is mainly, a batting average guy. He's going to get you on base and maybe driving a couple runs here and there. But I got to see a little bit more production, some acceleration from Alberto Mondesi, who in MLB The Show has the glitchiest swing in the game.
Oh my God, he's so great.
He is the name.
Alberto Mondesi.
Alberto Mondesi. It was pronounced.
Oh my God, I've heard of this.
He's not a bad player whatsoever. I just want to see him step it up a little bit. And positioning, buy, sell, stay. I think we might all be in cahoots here with the buy. They're rich in youth, and they got a few maybe star pitchers that are really young that can maybe work their way up in the development, but right now you're going to want to go out and buy some starting pitching that can maybe perform a little bit now because they don't got even one that they can build off of. So I don't know. Quickly, do you guys want to go through the buy, sell, stay, and then we'll move our way over to the Twins?
Yeah, I'm kind of on sell, but only sell Merrifield and Benintendi. Just see what you can get for them. You can definitely get like a mid-level prospect probably, and I think that's the only thing they should really be selling.
What about you, Madeo?
I think the Royals can stick around and give it a shot. I think they're in a bit of a better situation than Cleveland is right now, considering the fact that you have offensive pieces in place. And, pitchers generally come up the draft pipeline a lot quicker than hitters, right? So if you dedicate yourself to, I mean, as we've seen the Angels do, we don't know to what degree of success that'll be, but if you dedicate yourself to prioritizing college pitchers high in the draft, you're going to get some pretty good names that'll be ready in about 2 or 3 years. And, you've got Merrifield locked up to a long-term contract, and you've only got a few years left to Salvador Perez to take advantage of, right? So why not take a shot now, see what you can get in the draft? Maybe you land a big free agent. Maybe it's Rodon, right? Who knows? Or next year, maybe it's another big fish free agent, because you have the money to spend and you've got a core that can compete well enough and plays good defense, which is really important in the playoffs.
Yeah, make sure Patrick Mahomes does good too, because he's part-time your owner as well. He'll feed you some
Wait,
money.
yeah. Sorry, before we jump shift, I just actually wanted to look up. Oh my God. Yeah, if you look at like the class for starting pitchers, you got guys like, Charlie Morton's a possibility, Nathan Eovaldi's, Trevor Bauer, Sonny Gray, James Paxton, Kyle Gibson is another one, Corey Kluber, Taijuan Walker, Jake Odorizzi, Mike Clevenger.
And a lot.
There's going to be some money to spend. There's going to be some money
Severino,
to spend.
Sonny Gray, Aaron Nola.
I do guarantee you one of them landing in a Kansas City uniform, because they've got to get at least one guy.
I think even more than one. And if they could get 2 or 3 even, they got money for days. I think they could definitely compete with the White Sox if not this, obviously free agent class, not this year, next year is loaded with starting pitching talent, and even I believe closers too are, Chapman, Will Smith, Blake Tryon, Edwin Diaz. They could spend a lot on pitching.
And that's the good thing about youth too, is that you have time, right? The Royals can afford to sit back another year, get a good draft pick, draft college level pitchers in this draft, and then maybe attack some free agents next year. Right?
Yeah, they should
have
definitely
a great timeline. They have a window that's, got a lot of length for them. And yeah.
Yeah, for sure. They could definitely spend big, kind of like how the Rangers did this past year. I think next year, they only got to attack the pitching. And I really like their offense. I think it's really well-rounded. I think it's just the pitching is the Charlie horse.
Yeah, and I hope we get to see some decent ball playing from the Kansas City Royals. And I'm going to definitely buy a jersey. I love Whit Merrifield. That gray one suited me a little bit. I don't have a gray jersey personally. It throws it back a bit.
I like the powder blue ones.
Powder blues always.
They're also
the gold crest. Yeah. The Royals always do a great job with the jerseys. It's so easy to work around those colors and create something special. I really like it.
Any team that wears gold is just automatically miles ahead.
any team that's mixing baby powder blue with gold, you got my heart.
You're
that's
lucky.
For sure.
Yeah,
but let's hope this season they can capture a little bit more of the fan base's hearts after a couple of tough sledded years in the American League Central. But we're gonna go to our final team to end off the show, the Minnesota Twins. I don't want to spend too much time on this because we're running a little skim on the hour here, but let's give us a bit of time nonetheless. What do you guys give for an offseason grade? They haven't addressed any pressing needs yet. However, the one silver lining about the Minnesota Twins that they got before the closure of this or the whole situation with the MLB, they did extend Brian Buxton, their star center fielder, their young center fielder, the guy that they put so much work into developing as well. So you got him I believe they got him for 7 more years, if I'm not mistaken. It's a pretty long haul. So that's a big bonus. But again, if you're looking at the now part, you don't have many things that were addressed. What do you guys grade him? I got him as a C+.
I actually have him at an A-. I think that deal for Buxton was exceptional. I think it was exceptional. And I think it wasn't just a steal. I think it worked out both ways, because Buxton, a guy who's had a lot of health issues, it makes a lot of sense for him to take a paycheck now and, make sure that he's going to get paid over the next 7 years, even if it's not the most he could be making. It's that insurance policy, because Buxton has never really been able to play a fully healthy season. And, the Twins get a great player on a bargain if he can stay healthy. So it's a rare deal that I think works out really well for both sides, no matter how you frame it. Because even if Buxton, doesn't end up completing that deal, you'd still be spending the same amount of money for the quality of player you're getting. That said, there's a lot more work to be done. Also, who's pitching? They don't have
exactly. I don't know.
They don't really have anybody in this rotation. Obviously, getting rid of some of their bigger names too for younger assets, right? But you're going to need pitching now if you want to compete, and your core isn't getting any younger, notably guys like Josh Donaldson, and you've got some other offensive pieces in there that are only getting older. Miguel Sano, Max Kepler's starting to get a little older, right? You've got pieces in there that are aging, and the window on them is kind of closing. So you have to decide if you're going to sort of embrace the new era or you're going to try to compete now. And if you're going to try to compete now, you need to add pitching yesterday.
Exactly. And I'm with you there as well. I don't think I've dressed it correctly, but the Brian Buxton signing was an absolute steal. That
Yeah.
one I absolutely give an A+ to the Minnesota Twins. Glad on them for getting that thing done. And again, it suits, like you said, both parties as well. But in regards to a team standpoint and what they've been able or lack thereof to do with this offseason or the short time that they have, it hasn't been too pretty. And Evan, are you in the same boat with me with the C+ or?
Oh God, I mean, yeah, I don't. I mean, I did not see an A- coming out, but I mean, the Buxton deal was great, and I agree with you, Mateo. It's like, I mean, he still got a stupid amount of money. I mean, like,
Yeah.
how much more FU money do you really need? And especially over a 7-year period. I mean, God, I take that in a heartbeat. And
I was considering the length of the offseason so far and just what teams have had a chance to do as
no,
well.
yeah,
Like I
for
think,
sure, for
yeah,
sure. I think what the Twins had to do, you needed to re-sign Buxton. I remember there were like
yeah.
reports said, oh, he'll test the waters of free agency. Maybe teams just weren't as confident given the injury history that like we can really offer you that longevity that you're asking for. And you're right, like with a guy that's injured, you just at that point you got to go for whoever offers you the most years. It's just simple as that. Their pitching is atrocious. I don't know who the Cy Young is. I don't know. Other than that, I mean, they're in a really tough situation. I know we're going to get to the positioning later. I just feel like they got to sell and just completely revamp the roster and build around Byron Buxton. I don't see a position for guys like Miguel Sano, like Josh Donaldson, like Max Kepler. I mean, they got nothing really, and I would just try to trade everything to make this work around Buxton because right now, like what you have, it's gonna die out, and then you'll be left with nothing.
And I think we're going to stay on the positioning part a little bit more compared to maybe the record side of things. I don't really want to cover the record because they're all
Yeah, the
pretty darn
record's gonna
similar
be
with
a
both of
Yeah,
these
they're
church.
all
teams.
gonna be middle
So
ground. Yeah.
we'll omit the record part of things, but we'll focus a bit on the positioning. And it's I don't know, like I think an identity change is needed. I think a full change is maybe needed. We mentioned earlier with a couple teams here. Would you want to go retooling or rebuilding? I absolutely
I'd
do
go
believe
rebuilding
that
here.
Minnesota can go rebuilding because
Yeah.
they have a lot of bats and they're huge power bats that first of all, when I hear the Minnesota Twins name, I think of power. Paul's popping out, flying out of the yard, whatever you want to name it. And they're all guys that are in not the tail end of their career, but darn close to it. You got guys like Josh Donaldson, who hasn't been as productive since his time with the Jays. A guy like Miguel Sano, who can't really do anything but pop the ball out of the yard. So there's so many names that you just I don't know. I think you need to maybe adjust to the Kansas City Royals, something like that, where you got a evened out lineup 1 through 9. Maybe go towards the contact side of things. And ballparks obviously always do play a role. Kauffman Stadium's pretty darn big in the gap, so you can definitely well suited for contact hitters. Minnesota maybe not as much, but I think an identity change is needed and too much to build around. There's too much that you can go sell or buy pieces, bring them in, and try to keep them together. I don't think it's possible. Mateo, I know Evan, you gave your spiel there. Mateo, what do you think is the positioning of this team?
Yeah, I don't think it makes sense to half commit to this kind of a rebuild. I think you kind of have to do it the right way. You've got to gut everything except for Buxton, who you've now been able to lock up on a pretty team-friendly long-term deal. So I think, you start trading a lot of guys for assets. I mean, they've done fairly well in the trades that they have made for their rebuild so far. And I think, you'll be able to squeeze a little bit of values out of your aging guys like Donaldson and Sano and all that as well. But I think, you've got to not have commit to the rebuilds. And I think by the time you're expecting to be competing again, you got to pray that the Yankees aren't competitive because we all know how that story goes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And if you
I
want to
just
add
wanted
on,
to
Evan?
say, yeah, I just think the Twins are in a really tough situation too. I
Yeah.
mean, Miguel Sano, he's 28. He's a very team-friendly deal. He's making about 10 million, so he's really easy to ship and get a lot in return, especially given the amount of teams that are craving for. I believe Sano's a first baseman, if I'm not mistaken,
Yes.
right? Yeah, I mean, there's just a
so.
ton of. Let me look. Yeah, he's a first
He is.
baseman.
Nowadays he's playing first. Yeah.
There are a ton of teams in the American League, which I think he's better suited for, just given the DH. If it happens in the NL, then his value just goes skyrocketing, similar to how we were talking about Nick Castellanos.
Yep.
I just think a guy like Miguel Sano, he's only making 10 million. He's still locked up for another couple years. I think depending on what happens for the rest of free agency, there are a lot of teams. I look at a team like San Francisco Giants who could really be calling for Miguel Sano. I know Brandon Belt accepted the arbitration, but Brandon Belt's about 35 years old. If Chris Bryant doesn't stay, who do you have playing first base? I think a guy like Miguel Sano, and given just how easy it is to hit home runs in San Francisco, I just think it would be very suitable for him. Josh Donaldson, it's difficult because he's making 21 million at the age of 36, and he still has another couple of years left on his deal. So it's just going to be hard to get some of these guys out. I think with Donaldson, you have to pair him with another prospect. And I think that prospect has to be in the middle of mid-tier to elite, just given Donaldson's contract. And if teams are willing just to take that on one for one. But I think you guys are absolutely right. You got to build with Buxton and you got to sell the house, because there's just, you got to make it. I see another situation like the Washington Nationals where Juan Soto is kind of the only guy left, and that's who you build around. But yeah, that's my my little spiel again.
No, absolutely. And the one thing about the Washington Nationals that you brought up is that at least they got to a point where they won the championship. They cashed in, and I know that organization was craving and dying for something. It's something that wasn't even supposed to come out of fruition. I know they won that wild card game against the Brewers off of that really, really weird play in the outfield that got them that win,
God, yeah.
and then that sent them off to the races, and they
everything. To think that it was like a miscue.
And that's baseball, game of inches, something as little as that cost your season for the Milwaukee Brewers, and maybe one's a World Series for another. But no, the Minnesota Twins by no means are going to be anywhere near that spectrum of contending for a World Series, I don't think. And I know we put the records away, but I want to bring up these three players and the last ones that we will be mentioning: the team MVP, the team Cy Young, and the make or break MVP. I think it's going to go around Byron Buxton. The team is going to go through Byron Buxton nonetheless. Cy Young, it was a tough one to pick because this roster, we thought Kansas City was really bad. I guess you haven't really checked out Minnesota's either. And I went with Dylan Bundy, their newly acquired free agent. I think he's the best pitcher on that roster that they can maybe go through. And the make or break here, Josh Donaldson. I know he's older and the power of the bat. I maybe want to see him try to reinvent himself. I know he doesn't got many more years, a lot of runway to do so, but I gotta go with the Toronto friendly here and go with Josh Donaldson. But yeah, who do you got in the top three for you? Who are the Cy Youngs, make or breaks, and the MVP for the Minnesota Twins this upcoming season?
Yeah, sorry about the glare in my camera right now. The sun just hit a really bad position. So what do we got going on? We've got team MVP. I have Jorge Polanco. He's locked into a really long, solid contract. He's got that security, and he's a solid hitter, and a bright spot on this Twins offense that could definitely provide a little bit of a spark behind Buxton. We don't know how many games we're going to see from Buxton. Obviously, I assume they're going to try to be a little cautious with him, but if he plays every day, we've seen what he can do. Player of the month. I think it was it April last year that he won Player of the Month? Was it the first month?
I believe so. I remember an MLB card came out, so
that's what I'm basing it off of. So Jorge Polanco, a guy that definitely provides some punch behind Buxton and is receives a little bit of protection in that lineup too, with a lot of those power bats. That's a really important factor to consider too. Cy Young, one of those situations again where I'd like to say nobody, but if I have to pick somebody, I'll pick Michael Pineda. I mean, of all of them, I think he's probably got the best pedigree. You mentioned Bundy as well. I'll talk about him in a little bit, but as far as Pineda goes, I mean, there's not a lot of consistency on this starting rotation. I think Pineda is probably, in my opinion, one of the better shots you have at, a guy who's going to stay healthy and a guy who's going to be able to, throw the ball decently well for 162 games. We make or break. I have Dylan Bundy. He had a great showing in the shortened season and had a really bad showing last year.
Yes.
And now he finds himself in Minnesota with one more year until he has a team option worth $11 million. So if he wants to get paid, this is the year where he's going to have to show his stuff. At age 30, he's not getting any younger. And he really needs to prove himself after a rough year to prove that the shortened season wasn't an outlier and it was actually reflective of the kind of skill that he has. I mean, if I had to hedge my bets on make or break, I would probably bet against Dylan Bundy. But I mean, he's got the incentive to have a big year. If he's not going to play well this year, he's going to have a tough time finding a job after it. So, career on the line essentially for Dylan Bundy with this season.
And well put. And I think we're gonna pretty quickly put a bow on the Minnesota Twins. Not one that you can go really too in depth in. They're gonna have to pick out a direction sooner rather than later. And I think it's gonna be one that fans are not gonna really want to see. It is just the reality of the game. And I guess if you could take away one thing from our show, fans, is not only that we've covered 2 divisions right now, but we get all our knowledge from MLB The Show 22. So no, okay, we actually watch baseball. We're actually somewhat knowledge of the game, I'd say. Maybe some of us, Evan. Maybe not.
Wait,
I actually haven't played MLB in a while.
I haven't.
Like,
Yeah, neither have I.
The game has it takes a nosedive once you
it
go
dies
on.
off really quick, right?
It does.
Just, I don't know.
It's
Yeah.
just-
I got it for free just because of I had the Game Pass or whatever.
yeah.
So I was like, all right, for sure. We'll take
yeah,
it.
No, but no, MLB cards are fun to base your stuff around, but we'll try our best in the upcoming days and upcoming weeks as we outline the other remaining 3 or 4 divisions. What team what we see of the players from an actual reality standpoint. But next week we got on cue for you guys the American League West. Evan's got the hosting gigs for that. Apparently he gave us some weird April Fool's jokes in our group chat about it.
Yeah.
And it actually tripped me out because that is something I'd expect from Evan. But he's got the AL West on cue. We'll be talking about that. A lot more competitive in the AL Central, as obviously as it sounds. So we'll be getting that one next week. I appreciate you guys sticking on around for the ride. We got that episode 3 in the books. We got episode 4 coming up. Thank you guys for hopping on the podcast today. Thank you guys for tuning in. And I'll catch you guys all next week. Take care, everyone.